Welcome to the Shenandoah Valley Partnership Cooking Class. I'm Jay Langston, the Executive Director of the partnership here. Today, we are going to be talking about something that all of our businesses are talking about. It's childcare. And we are fortunate to be hosted by a childcare center, which you're about to hear more about. If you're going to cook along with us, preheat your oven now. 350 degrees, simple recipe, and I think you're going to love it. And with that, I would like to introduce our first guest today, Delores Jameson, who is the Executive Director of the Harrisonburg Rockingham Child Daycare Center. I got it right?
You got it right.
She said I could read it, but I didn't want to do that. And also with us is Charles Hendricks, who is a principal with the Gaines Group. He's an architect who has had some work with child care centers, and we're going to talk about some of the opportunities and some of the issues related to child care. So with that, Delores, I'm going to turn to you first. You want to give a little history about how this child center came about?
So our daycare center has been in existence for over 53, well, we're at 53 years now, since 1971.
Okay.
We have always been housed in churches here in the downtown area, first Asbury United Methodist Church, then Muhlenberg Lutheran Church, and just this year in August, we, through the help of our beloved friend Charles and Harrisonburg Construction, we have remodeled this building, and we moved in and started operating here in August in our own facility.
One of the things that a lot of people talk about is sort of the demand for childcare. Can you speak to sort of the regional situation with childcare? Because, yeah, we don't have it solved, we know that, but there are some positive things that are going on.
There are. So one of our goals in trying to secure our own facility was to expand our child care program to include infants and toddlers. In all our years up until August, we were only able to offer child care to children 2 and up. Since we've been in this facility, we've been able to expand services to infants up to 2 years of age. So that's been we've been very grateful that we've been able to do that, and just to help support our community.
You mentioned something, you talked about, okay, you've done an expansion. You know, you have to have a secure, good environment for the children, but you also have to have it for the workers. Charles, this is sort of where you come in, as a part of it as well. Can you both give a little bit of background of, well, what is required? What do you need to do? What do you have to do?
Yeah, so there are building code standards that you have to design to for being a daycare that serves 2.5 and up, or if they're 2.5 and younger, there's different requirements. And then there are also state requirements through the Department of Energy, Department of Education,
Yep.
that we have to comply to.
It just takes energy to do all the child care.
Yeah.
I totally get it, yeah.
So it has to do with the safety of the occupants, because if you have someone sleeping in a building, there's a different level of hazard that you have to design to. And then if you have babies that can't walk out of the building in an emergency, you have to be able to roll them out. Yep. So there's just different design standards to convert what was an office building into a daycare. So we had to do a lot of changes for safety purposes.
Is one of the issues maybe that we're facing part of just the number of facilities and the ability to build those? Because this costs some dollars when you're doing this, right?
Yeah, we've been fortunate to have a lot of different daycare clients this year, and I think you'll talk more about the funding behind that through the city that has raised a lot of new facilities to come on board. But I've looked at a lot of buildings that don't work here in Harrisonburg that can't be converted economically into a daycare. So there is a challenge, and you have to find the right place and the right solution. Delores and I looked at a lot of buildings when we were trying to decide if this was the right building.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure that took a little while. Okay, Charles gave me a great segue. It does cost a lot of money,
Yep.
you know, to run one, much less build. And talk about what Harrisonburg did with what? It was the American Rescue Funds. If I get it wrong, you can explain it to our audience. Talk about how this all came about in a way, the expansions and so forth.
So the city of Harrisonburg received rescue funding from the ARPA grant, is that what we're calling it, the AARP? So child care centers within the city of Harrisonburg were able to apply for funding, and then the city reviewed all the applicants. There were different steps we had to follow to make sure we were eligible to apply for the funding. And then the city reviewed all that and then awarded the different amounts to the different programs for whether you were able to expand and offer this many more spots, whether you were able to open your own program. So the city was very supportive of our program here.
One of the really cool things about that program is the partnership with the Small Business Development Center,
Yes.
which is a great resource that we have here in the Valley. So they gave business training for how to run a daycare and made sure the daycare could be sustainable long term.
Yes, that is true.
That's a good point. I've forgotten about, with the Small Business Development Center, that they had a hand in trying to get some of the workforce. Is that still a challenge?
That is a huge challenge, and I don't know if there's a way to solve that. So yes, we talk about expanding daycare, but in expanding daycare, you then have to find qualified staff members, which I think your next guests will be able to talk a little bit about that part. So it's a constant cycle of finding more spots for children, finding the qualified child care, and then keeping the cost of child care affordable so that the families can afford to bring their children.
Exactly. Your program has been successful.
Yes.
And it's growing, correct?
Correct.
That it's, talk about that. Talk about where you're going, and I'll let the audience know, we're a relatively small metro area. You have Harrisonburg, which is surrounded by Rockingham County, and maybe together that's 140,000 people. That's just part of our region, but it's sort of the center of our region. So, we have the same requirements as any other. I'll let y'all take off now where you're going, what you're expanding, and what you're doing with it.
So I don't know if I'm answering your question, but my one statement.
Tell me what I was trying to ask.
My one statement is it takes. They always say it takes a village to raise a child. So if you have your own child, you need lots of support. It takes a community to raise a daycare, and that's always been one of my things. I can't do it alone. Charles and I can't do it alone. It takes a community to raise a program. So, and then I'm also, as much as you need to expand and offer more daycare spots, I believe strongly in quality childcare. So for me, sometimes there's strength in having high quality childcare versus massive amounts of spots, because then you're not always getting quality childcare.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I answered all of his questions.
No, that was very good.
Do you want to add to that?
From the building side, there's a set number of kids you can have based on the square footage of a room.
Yes.
So that's a state standard that you can't exceed.
Yeah.
So that limits us with, this is how big the building is. To expand the building would be, that's the only way to allow. The expansion you did was expanding the age group.
Yes.
So having a building that's sprinklered with doors directly out, and the use group that we're in allows you to have the babies in here. So that was the huge expansion. There's an incredible demand for the babies and the toddlers that you can't get with a lot of buildings that exist, because we just can't renovate it to make it possible to meet the standards that we have to.
Yeah. What am I missing? What else would y'all like to say? What do you think is the opportunity?
But you didn't talk much about the sliding scale aspect of the daycare, how you make it affordable for more people to access daycare. So I think that's one piece that sets your facility apart from many of the others.
Yeah. So our program has always used the support of the community by offering a sliding fee scale. So families pay tuition based on their income. So the more income they make, the more money they pay. We've continued to receive funding from United Way. They've always helped support the sliding fee scale. We've received some funding for several years now from the city of Harrisonburg. We are a part of the Mixed Delivery Grant, which is a statewide grant that helps support families. We use social services subsidy, so families can qualify through that. What am I missing? I feel like there's another one I'm missing.
I don't know the funding side.
Yeah, Charles is not worried about funding, only when it's coming to him. That's that aspect.
Diane's mouthing me, and I can't tell what she's saying.
That's all right. But you're using a portfolio
of ways.
assistance that is out there that some may not know about, I suppose.
Right.
So it's a means of helping our community, because we are, with manufacturing being our largest private sector employment base, we do have a sliding scale of all incomes. Every community does, but we have a tremendous, that middle section that they really need the assistance as well.
Right, correct.
And we need a diversity of types of daycares. So like when you're looking at your college, when you're deciding where you want to go, when you go through the daycares, they have different personalities. So having multiple choices for parents to pick from, what I remember when my kids were young enough, we didn't have a lot of choices. We found a place that there was space.
Yes.
So hopefully Harrisonburg is growing to the point where there might be choices and open seats. I think you still have a waiting list though. I think we're still in the point of demand where there's a lot of daycare coming based on the jobs that I have that I'm designing right now, but we still have that need and we need to fill the need because it enhances our business community. We need daycare so that our parents can go to work and our business community can thrive and grow, which is what SVP is all about.
That is what we're trying to do, is trying to provide these foundational needs that allow our people to go to work and prosper and try to grow the economy. You're right.
Great quality of life.
Yep.
Having a daycare in the heart of downtown.
Yep.
You could always go get a beer before you come pick up your kid. It's very convenient. This is a great quality of life location.
Yes, it is. We are in downtown Harrisonburg. That's one of the things that I didn't say. And also, if you didn't notice the pitch, Charles is also the SVP chair of our board too. So good plug there, Charles. I appreciate that. Well, I appreciate, first of all, you allowing us to utilize your beautiful kitchen.
And I am grateful to share this kitchen. We've worked hard for it, and I love it. So thank you for coming.
Well, and it's a great story. It's we know we haven't solved the child care problem, but we're offering at least solutions. We're offering solutions and working toward that goal, so that we can grow here. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
And don't go too far. We can probably bring you
I'm
back
here for the cookies.
You're here for the cookies.
I'm here for the cookies.
Charles is here for the cookies. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, now the fun portion, not that that was bad, but the cooking portion, which I am going to get to really quick because I love this recipe. Today, it is a chocolate sugar cookie. And it's very simple, and what we're going to do is, you can see all of the ingredients out here in front of me. It is, you've seen me before, I pile everything into the pot at once. This is a time when I am not going to do that. I'm going to mix all of the dry ingredients first. So it's 2 cups of flour. And I didn't make too big of a cloud when I did that. It is a 1/2 cup of Hershey's cocoa. I say that because food and beverage is really big in our areas, and this is Hershey's cocoa. They don't make the cocoa here, but they do use 100 million pounds of cocoa for their Reese's and Mounds and Almond Joy bars that they make here. And if you are east of the Mississippi and you like Reese's, you're probably eating the Reese's from the Stewart's Draft, Virginia plant that is south of us about 25 miles. So with all of that said, a 1/2 cup of the cocoa, the baking soda, which was, I believe it was 1 teaspoon. I should read my recipe. Yes, 1 1/2 teaspoon of salt. and then the brown sugar. The recipe calls for dark brown sugar. I have used both. I don't see the difference, but that's a personal preference. Well, and of course, I blew cocoa everywhere here, but that's what happens when you're live and stuff happens, and my recipe card's gone. Anyway, I'm going to put this in here, and you just mix it. So that it's all together, and then I will add the rest of the ingredients. And literally, it's just that simple to get everything mixed together. And it's almost a foolproof recipe in that regard. So while we're doing that, I'm going to uncover the butter. I'm going to pour the rest of the granulated sugar that's in here, and let me double check this because I've only made dozens and dozens of these here recently, and yep, I've got everything in there. So now I am going to put in the butter. And it's 2 sticks of butter. And before I do that, let me show you what the mix should look like. And 2 sticks of butter, softened, because you can only imagine the mess if this were still real chunky and it gets moving all of the powder around. I am going to get this out of the way. And I'm going to try to do this carefully so that you don't see a big chocolate cloud flying out of here. There we go. And this you want to mix relatively well. You want to mix it 2 to 3 minutes so that it's almost not quite fluffy, but you really want it well mixed, because that's going to help when we put it on the wax paper, which I'm going to have sugar on here, and we're going to coat them, and then we're going to put it on parchment paper on the cookie sheet. And it is starting to mix. And it's hard for me to try to talk to you all of the time while this is going on as well. But this is one of those simple recipes that I think I had never had a chocolate sugar cookie before. And we're fortunate having, a lot of the farming that's in our area, and the dairies and the creameries and so forth, that we have someone who brings the milk directly from the dairy and makes ice cream with it. And they make an ice cream cookie you can get it with a chocolate sugar cookie. And that's where I first had this recipe. And of course, not all the butter wants to work when you're being filmed, particularly. Now it's starting to mix the rest of this. And now I will go ahead and add the wet ingredients, which 1 egg, and then the vanilla. And I'll show you here, this is what it's starting to look like. And I don't know if you can get, let me get this out so that you can see, but it's starting to get the right consistency. Here. And we'll finish and I'll try to mix this a little harder so that we just don't continue for a long time doing this, but now it is starting to become the dough that I want it to be. And with that, it's essentially done. That's the way you want the dough to look. So before I take this out and drop it, I am going to put this off into the bowl, and then I will roll it out on the wax paper, and then we'll cut it out into shapes. Here, and I'm just going to lay this on the parchment paper at this point. And we're through with the bowl, and then I am going to use a rolling pin, and I'm going to flour it, so hopefully it won't stick. We'll see how well this works here, because this, if anything goes wrong, it definitely goes wrong when we're recording like this. So I'm just going to roll it out, and probably, you know, maybe a quarter of an inch thick, and then we're going to put the shapes, make the shapes, use the templates. I don't know, what do you, the cutters. And I'm going to put some more on here, so it's starting to stick a little. And of course, you know, I hadn't thought about this, but now it's trying to move all around with the parchment paper on here. Set this here, and I've got some shapes that we will use, and I'm running out of space. Here, and I am going to put the sugar on wax paper that I've prepared, because you want to coat these with sugar, and I think the easiest way to do that is simply to, when we lift these out, just put them on there, and then put them back on the parchment paper so that we're ready to put them in the oven. And I'm using different ones and trying to use as much of the dough as possible here. Christmas tree, so that you know what I'm doing. Have to do a star or two. Here. Santa. And I'm going to do one more star. And for the sake of time, I'm not going to do any more. I'm just going to get these. I'm going to remove the dough. And believe me, this will not go to waste. But you can see the consistency. It's coming up, particularly on this parchment paper, it's coming up very easy. I use parchment paper for everything when possible. And now, stocking. And then on the parchment paper. And another. And make sure that I've got this covered. Snowman. And let me get that tip of that. And these may be a little thicker than I intended. We'll see how these cook. I know how they cook when you roll them up in a ball like this. 11 minutes is perfect for this particular size. But I have help here, so I'm expecting these to turn out well. And I'm always more concerned when I'm doing cookies that I worry about overcooking them. I don't mind them being really moist. And so that's a personal preference. I know some people like a very, very well done cookie, but that's not my style. Here, more of the dough. And the last one is Santa. I want to make sure I've got everything. One more, and they're covered. And so I'm going to remove the rest of the dough and save it to be cookies later. And this, if you can get a shot, that's what it should look like. Hold on to the parchment paper because I know it would slide off. And I'm going to position these. There we go. And I'll be back in a moment. Thank you. Okay, we made it through that. I didn't make too big of a mess on the table. Let me get this out of the way. And then I am going to introduce our next guest. And I'm going to leave this here. I'd like to introduce Stacey. I'd like to introduce Stacey Park. Stacey is the Early Childhood Development Coordinator at Blue Ridge Community College.
That is correct.
I got it right.
Yes, you did.
You were alluded to by Delores, and you've got a wonderful story. So talk about how, first of all, you got into childcare, and then we can go from there.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here and to see this beautiful facility. So I began my career in early childhood education in 1995. So I graduated high school, didn't have any direction for my life, didn't really know what I wanted to do. College was not in the plan at the time.
At the time?
At the time, yes. And so a position came available at a local child care center. And so I live in Winchester, Virginia. And so I work in this area.
Which is about 70 miles from here.
It
so
is.
60 or 70 miles from
yes,
here.
Yes, that's correct. And so a position came available. I applied. I thought, I'll give this a try and see what it's like. I was hired for this position as an assistant, working with all ages in this very small center at the time. And 2 weeks in, I knew this was my calling. I knew that early childhood was going to be my field, and I fell in love with it. And so I grew in my position. I became the teacher for the 3 to 5-year-old class, so the preschool age group, which I absolutely loved, but I quickly learned that I needed some knowledge and skills, that even though it was fun, I needed some assistance. So I started attending classes at my local community college.
And while you were still doing the work,
Yes,
right?
correct,
Yes.
correct. So I had to work full time. That was
Yes.
required. So I
Often
continued.
with college,
Exactly.
community college
Yes.
students.
And so I worked full time. And the amazing thing that I loved so much was I could apply what I was learning in class directly in my work with children. And so I did that. I held that position for about 9 years, and then the director position came available. And so I accepted that position, and I served in that position for 14 years at the same center. During that time, I then decided that I loved learning about early childhood so much that I wanted to continue my education. So I pursued a bachelor's degree,
Yes.
master's degree, and then while I was still in my director position, I started pursuing my doctorate. And so during that time as a director, our center grew from 5 classes to 8 classes. And so we expanded to help, with meeting childcare needs in the community. And also I was then able to take on our part-day program as director and our after-school program. So I had about 130 children and 35 staff at the time. And so as I was pursuing my doctorate, I decided that higher education was going to be my next calling. I was really feeling led to share my knowledge and experience at a greater level and a greater depth. And so I accepted a teaching position at a university and was at Frostburg State for a little while. And then the position came available at Blue Ridge. Community college is always where my heart has been. So I was very intrigued by this opportunity that Blue Ridge was offering. And during that time, while I was in my position at Frostburg, I finished my doctorate as well. So I tell my story. I like to share my story because I feel like a barrier to entering the field of early childhood is the misconception that it's a job, that it's a dead end, that you can't grow or advance. But I like to share my story to share that you really can. Early childhood education opens doors, opens lots of possibilities for those who are interested in expanding their knowledge and skills. And so I just appreciate the opportunity to share my story about that and how that kind of led to where I am now.
I love the great story is you didn't see that you were college material yet. Now you're Dr. Park and working with Dr. John Downey, who we've had on this program before, who is such a great person for in this community. I mean, I love all of our community colleges. We have 3, but certainly John has done a lot. Delores alluded to, the workforce issues. We all know that is a common issue. Talk about that. You said you said something really important. It has become a career for you,
Yes.
and I don't think that people understand that message. But more importantly, what the community college is doing, to try to help the situation. And again, I'll let you just take it away.
Okay, yes, absolutely. So at Blue Ridge Community College, they did not have a program. They had early childhood courses and they had a career studies certificate 1 and 2. And then when COVID hit, the child care shortage became so much more prevalent. And it just became, such a challenge for everyone. And it has kind of brought early childhood and childcare to the forefront of a lot of conversations.
Yes.
And so Blue Ridge decided, and I have learned since this is my 3rd year at Blue Ridge, and I have learned that when there's a need in the community, a workforce need, Blue Ridge steps up.
Yes,
And
yes,
they work
they do.
to fill that need.
Absolutely.
And so that's kind of where I come in. So
Yes.
they did not have a program or a coordinator. They saw a need to expand the program and to find a way to try to address those workforce challenges within the community. So that was when I was hired. That position was put out. I applied for it and was hired, and I began working with the Harrisonburg Rockingham Chamber of Commerce.
Yes. Oh, that's right. Yes, mentioned
Yes,
that.
yes.
This is a in our region we have 2 or 3 really large chambers of commerce, and some of these foundational issues that we all talk about. We know it's workforce, it's childcare, and it's transportation. We have collectively taught to cross boundaries, and we're not stepping on one another. In the Harrisonburg Rockingham Chamber, childcare has been a focus for them.
Absolutely, and that was one of the first aspects of my position, was to begin working with them and working, to try to resolve and try to meet the needs of the community for the child care. And so as I started to get to know this community a little bit better and started to form partnerships, throughout the community, we talk a lot about the child care shortage and we need spaces. But I also want to emphasize that we must prioritize quality as well. And Delores mentioned it as well.
Yes, absolutely.
And yes, so that is a message that, we're not just looking for slots to take care of children. We are looking at that educational piece, the early childhood education piece, and to prepare children for kindergarten and beyond. For lifelong success is what we're looking at for quality in early childhood. And so part of that is by preparing a workforce to meet those needs of the children. And so quality employees who have knowledge and skills to be able to be effective in their job. Much like I recognized that I didn't have that. I needed that knowledge when I was working with little ones. And so the community college was there for me. And so I want to be able to make sure that that's there for others as well.
You mentioned something when we talked earlier about the growth of the program there. And really surprised me because, I'm, general public in many ways, and I hear the stories, but I don't hear the success stories. Mm-hmm. You talk about how it has grown.
Yes, so thank you for bringing that up. And so one of the other responsibilities that I saw as a need was to increase the program offerings. So we started with 2 career study certificates. And then one of the first things I did was work with our deans and the college to build an Associate of Applied Science degree. And so that degree within early childhood is very unique because it is an applied workforce degree that prepares individuals to be successful in their positions, but it does transfer. So for those who are looking to expand beyond, we do have partnerships with Virginia universities.
Yes.
And so they can choose one of several that we have articulation agreements with, and it transfers as a 2+2, just like a regular transfer degree. So that's something that, as we have put that out there, along with that came a lot of marketing and and just a lot of outreach in the community. And so the partnerships and the professional development that I try to provide for free for individuals within the community.
Yeah, now wait a minute, you just said a magic word, free.
Oh, yes.
Yes, we're going to talk
so
about
we're
that.
going to talk about that. Yes, for sure. So to get back to your previous question, so the growth of our program kind of came from some of these, the work that we've been doing to, eliminate barriers for students. And so one of the barriers for students to go to school is in early childhood, the pay is very low. That is a well-known fact.
It's a well-known fact.
I would hear a lot, how am I going to afford to pay for college when I don't make much in my position? So what Blue Ridge offers is most of my students come attend, get their certificate and their degree, and they pay nothing. We have grants and scholarships, federal and state, that provide for the cost. So that's one barrier that we've eliminated. Mm-hmm. So free education for most of my students. They mostly qualify. There's information on our website and that the students can go to find that information as well. The other barrier that we have identified with the early childhood community is that those who work in childcare, they a lot of times have to work a second job to help meet expenses, to make ends meet, basically. And so how am I going to have time to go to school when I'm working a second job? So Blue Ridge also offers something, a grant called the Davenport Expansion Grant. And this has been, this is our first year that we had 32 spaces available. I have 22 students taking advantage of this right now. So 10 more slots are still open for the spring semester. I'm looking to use up all of our funds for this. And what that does is it provides students with $1,500 of money to help with living expenses.
Just expenses.
Groceries,
Yes.
rent, gas,
Yep,
vacation,
transportation,
whatever.
yep.
Whatever they need it for, they get $250 a month for 6 months. And that doesn't necessarily cover the entire time, but it helps to offset those expenses. And so that is another way that we have been able to help to eliminate some barriers so that those who want to can really grow and in their field and their experience. And so all of these initiatives, I believe, has kind of led to our growth that we have seen. And like I mentioned, this is my 3rd year at Blue Ridge. Last fall, we had 35 students in the early childhood development program. This fall, we have 70. So we have doubled enrollment.
You have doubled enrollment from 35 to
Mm-hmm.
70, and I would imagine a lot of people would believe that 70 is a great number,
Yes. Yes.
for something. How are you getting the message out to people?
That is a great question.
It may be one of the hardest questions sometimes we find.
Right, and we have been able to do some marketing. So the Davenport grant that provides for students also provides funding for Blue Ridge to help with advertisement and marketing. A lot of what I've done in my position is just try to connect with the community and reaching out to the directors, finding out what their needs are. I do offer free professional development workshops, and they're on Zoom, so it's convenient for those who work full time. So that's a way to kind of connect with the students and share about what we offer at Blue Ridge and about the grant. Many of our students come and say that that's how they learned about it, was through those initiatives. Last year we did an art show during Week of the Young Child, and so I invited community centers to contribute artwork that their children did, and we displayed it in our library at Blue Ridge. So different ideas and different ways. I'm constantly seeking ways to connect with the community because I feel like those relationships is where we're going to connect and bring in more students. I'm also looking to the future to partner more with the high schools as well.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, and okay, now the program is growing. I hadn't thought about the high school standpoint, but
Yes.
Does that have special requirements, or is it accessible to them just like the other dual enrollment programs are?
Okay, so we don't have a dual enrollment yet.
For this?
Yet,
yet.
for
Okay.
early childhood yet. It's kind of on the radar to kind of do that, but also some of the high schools do have early childhood programs, so being able to work with them and partner with them on what does this look like? How do we reach those high school folks who may not know what they want to do, who may fall in love with this career, just like I did.
Just like you did,
Right,
yes.
exactly. And so that's another source, and that will also help address the workforce needs. And so I think that the message is, getting out to high schoolers is that this is a viable career opportunity. There's a pathway for success, for achievement, for making a difference in the lives of children and families. To me, there's no greater reward than that.
Yes. I wish you could be a little more passionate about this. No, it was fantastic. Anything else that we should know? Anything else that you want to talk about in that regard?
Well, thank you so much again for this opportunity. And again, I just want to reiterate that students can come and earn their certificate or career study certificate or their associate's degree using grants and scholarships. I work with students, to help them through that process. So sometimes college can be very scary, and I understand that. It was for me. So having that someone that I'm more than happy to walk people through the steps to get into the program, to help them through it. The other thing I wanted to mention is the accessibility of our program. I mentioned that most of our students work in the field. So they work full time, they have families, they have responsibilities, and some of them don't even live in this area. So we offer our program fully online.
That is fantastic
And
that they can do that as
yes,
well.
yes. So they can get their certificates and their associate's degree fully online. And, again, there's a lot of technological support and everything provided for that. So anyone who's interested in learning more, please, come to our website, brcc.edu, search for early childhood education. And I would be more than happy to share more information with you, work with you, get you started on this career pathway.
Stacey, thank you so much. We realize that we haven't solved the problem, But one of the things that we love to do in the Valley is start working on the problems. And this is an excellent way. You've heard two different stories here of how we are tackling, not just talking about it, but programs are in place that we are addressing this. We know there probably isn't going to be a simple solution to any of this, but we do have pathways in order to achieve this, and it's making a difference. So thank you. And we are going to fade away for a moment because we have some other small guests who are going to be joining us very, very shortly. Yes, so welcome back. Now we have our special guest with us, and they are decorating the cookies. That's one of the beautiful things about a sugar cookie is it's a palette, you know, for creativity from there. And our guys and gals are doing a great job of putting on the sprinkles now for the frosted cookies. I should have also mentioned, because I was reminded while we were away, if you're going to cook a shape, the temperature needs to go up, because if it cooks too long, then the outside gets really crusty and the middle doesn't. These, we've let them cool now, and so they were able to decorate. And what do you guys think about this? Is it fun?
Yeah.
Kind of? Yeah, I don't know if you could hear that, but I hope my mic picked it up. And they are using all kinds of, you know, the colored sugar and sprinkles and other things that we have out here. Oh guys, I love the stocking there. It's great. Yeah. And I think we can probably wrap it up now if you're happy. Stacey, anything else? And I couldn't be doing this without a lot of help, as you can imagine, for us. So thank you.
Thank you. So
Yes. Guys, do y'all want to all look at the camera and say Merry Christmas all at the same time? On the count of three?
3, 2, 1. All right,
Yes.
ready?
3, 2, 1. Merry Christmas. I wish all of you a wonderful season and appreciate you being with us on our cooking show. I always part with this. I was like, you know, cherish those that you love, you know, understand those that aren't like you, and be good to yourself. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Prosperous 2025. Bye.